Good evening, everyone. It's Lindsay here again, and I hope you're having such a lovely evening. It's about 11 p.m. here in London. I've been studying pretty much all day, and thought it'd be nice to take a little break and get back to reading our book here. I really hope all of y'all are enjoying this book every bit as much as I am, because I am really enjoying this book so very much. It's just not just as someone who is studying to become a doctor, but also just enjoying it for its entertainment value. I think it's such a wonderful book. I have read a little bit of it since last reading to all of you, so we won't be picking up exactly where we left off, but I have done a couple other videos of reading this book, so if you enjoy this, go ahead and check out those other videos as well. And then I also have some videos of me reading another book, Pushback by Dr. Amy Tutor, which is also a book that I enjoyed so very much. So if you would like to hear some of that book as well, then please check that out too. So let's go ahead and get right back into it. I've been reading This Is Going to Hurt by Adam Kay. We'll go ahead and dive back in. I also have my tea right here, but it's a little too hot. I don't know if you can see on the camera the steam coming off of it, but still just a little bit too hot to drink, so we'll sip that in a little bit. For now, let's go ahead and just get into our book. So where we are is on Chapter 4, Senior House Officer, Post 3. I realize everyone moans about their salary and thinks they deserve more, but I'm happy to look back on my time as an SHO with a bit of objectivity and declare I was profoundly underpaid. The money is utterly out of step with the level of responsibility you have. Literally life and death decisions. Plus there's the fact you've been to medical school for 6 years, worked as a doctor for 3, and started to accrue postgraduate qualifications. Even if you think it's appropriate that you take home less money per week than a train driver, there's still the fact that these working weeks can involve over 100 hours of unremitting slog, meaning the parking meters outside the hospital are on a better hourly rate. Doctors tend not to complain about the money, though. It's not a profession you go into to satisfy the dollar signs behind your eyes, whatever the occasional dead-mouthed politician may say. Besides, even if you're unhappy with your salary, there's sod all you can do about it. It's all determined centrally and rolled out across the entire profession. Perhaps it's unhelpful to describe it as a salary. The NHS should call what they pay doctors a stipend, acknowledge it's below the failing rate, but that they're in the job because it's their calling, rather than for any financial imperative. Like the way priests get a stipend for their duty to God, or love of choir boys, depending on denomination. Nothing about the job plays along with the conventional reward structure for employees. There's no opportunity for a bonus. The closest that exists is Ash Cash, where juniors get £40 a pop for signing a form for the funeral directors to confirm the patient about to be cremated doesn't have a pacemaker fitted. Pacemakers explode during the process, taking with them entire crematoria and congregations, as one family presumably found out during a particularly stressful funeral. Thinking about it, that's pretty much the opposite of performance-related pay. There's no dazzling your superiors and leapfrogging your peers, or any opportunity for promotion. You progress up the ranks at a regulation rate. Everyone seems to think doctors get upgraded on planes, but the only way that happens in reality is if they put on a suit and then apply for a job in the city, earn more money, and buy a business class ticket. I suppose you do have unlimited access to the informal medical opinions of every specialty at work if you begin to malfunction in any way. This is good, but just as well, as there's little chance you'd get the time off work to go to an outpatient clinic. But I'm not sure it's worth the flip side of providing medical advice to every friend at every opportunity. You'll hear, "Could you just take a quick look?" more than you'll ever hear, "Hey, it's great to see you." My only small consolation was not having to give medical advice to relatives, what with most of my relatives being doctors. All medics get to grips with the lack of promotion and financial incentives, but it's harder to accept the fact that it's rare to get a "well done." The butlers at Buckingham Palace, under orders to float out of rooms backwards and never to make eye contact with the Queen, probably get more recognition. It didn't strike me for years, until the 5th or 6th time I'd had my knuckles rapped for some trivial fuck-up, when a degree of human error had kicked in, that none of my consultants had ever taken me aside to say I was doing a good job, or that I'd made a smart management decision, saved a life, cleverly thought on my feet, or stayed at work late for the 13th consecutive shift without complaining. Nobody joins the NHS looking for plaudits or expecting a gold star or a biscuit every time they do a good job, but you'd think it might be basic psychology and common sense to occasionally acknowledge, if not reward, good behavior to get the most of your staff. Patients tended to get it, though. When one of them said thank you, you knew they meant it, even if it felt like it wasn't for anything special, just one of the smaller horrors thrown at you that day. I've kept every single card a patient has given me, birthday and Christmas cards from family and friends would always get thrown away, but these guys survived every house move, escaping even my cathartic clear-out of medical paperwork once it was all over. They were little fist bumps that kept me going, rays of thoughtfulness from my patients that hit the spot when bosses couldn't or wouldn't oblige. It took until now, my 3rd job as an SHO, to feel properly recognized by the consultant for the first time. A few months through my contract, my clinical supervisor said that a registrar was leaving the post early for a research job and asked if I'd be interested in acting up on the rota. She told me she'd been very impressed with my work in the department. I knew this was a lie. She'd met me twice, once at induction, and once to bollock me for starting a patient on oral rather than intravenous antibiotics. She clearly just looked through everyone's CVs and clocked that I had worked as an SHO for the longest. But sometimes it doesn't matter how they spot you, as long as they actually do. Sorry. Of course, it's pretty late in London. I should probably head to bed after this. It doesn't matter how they spot you, as long as they actually do. So I beamed and said I'd be delighted. I also realized this could make a significant practical difference to me. 3 years into our relationship, H and I were taking the next step into adulthood and looking to buy a flat. I decided to sacrifice a shorter commute so we could have a permanent base place to actually call home, somewhere you can hang a picture on the wall without being docked 50 quid from your rental deposit. Most non-medical friends were clambering onto the second rung of the property ladder by then, and you know what it's like when your friends are all doing something and you're not. I'm sorry, my neighbors are so loud, they make me crazy. I don't know how I managed to get any work or studying done. It's a marvel. Whether it's fingering someone at a party, taking your driving test, or dropping hundreds of thousands of pounds on a dungeon with dry rot, nobody wants to be left behind. Because every penny of salary helps with getting a mortgage, I asked the consultant if I'd be paid on the registrar scale while I was acting up. She laughed so long and so hard, I'm pretty sure you could hear it through 2 sets of double doors over a labor ward. Let's see if my tea is cool enough yet. Still pretty hot. It's good though. I've been drinking so much more tea now since I've been sick. I think it's helping me sleep a bit too. Get the nice chamomile tea. Monday, 12 February 2007. Prescribing a morning after pill in A&E. The patient says, I slept with 3 guys last night. Will 1 pill be enough? See, we're having just such a nice time reading this lovely book. And also, I'm sorry, it's almost midnight. It really does frustrate me when my neighbors are this loud. Don't you just get so frustrated by that? When it's the middle of the night and your neighbors just seem to have no concern for that. I find that very frustrating. Guess I'll have another sip of tea while we're waiting. Alright, that last part again. Monday, 12 February 2007. Prescribing a morning after pill in A&E. The patient says, I slept with 3 guys last night. Will 1 pill be enough? Haven't we all been there? Thursday, 22 February 2007. Spent the morning going through 3 months of bank statements with the mortgage broker so he can assess my expenditure. You don't go out much, do you? He says, totting it up. For once, I'm grateful for my job. We wouldn't have saved up enough for a deposit if I was allowed the normal social life of someone in their late 20s. It's reasonably depressing looking at where the money goes. A lot of coffee, a lot of petrol, a lot of takeaway pizza, necessities and practicalities. Not much in the way of fun or extracurricular frippery. No pubs, restaurants, cinemas, or holidays. Hang on, what's that? There we go, theater tickets. Shortly followed by a payment to a florist after bailing on H at the last minute. Depressingly, it happens frequently enough that I can't even remember the particular emergency or staffing crisis on that occasion. Wednesday, 28 February 2007. In Gynae Clinic, I go online to look up some management guidelines for a patient. The Trust's IT department has blocked the Royal College of Obstetrics and Gynecology website and classified it as pornography. Monday, 12 March 2007. Pretty sure that if OBS and Gynae goes arse over tit, I could retain in psychiatry in about 15 minutes. I've basically taught myself how to do it over the course of a dozen conversations with Simon. Tonight I was pretty stressed when he called and had a bit of a moan about work. Unexpectedly, this really seemed to help him. Either he's a horrible sadist and likes the idea of me having an awful day, or it's comforting for him to know that everyone else has shit going on in their lives too. Misery loves company, after all. You only have to look in the doctor's mess to know that. Maybe it's like when you're in a proper relationship for the first time and you meet their family, and you see it's not just your family that's a miserable, fucked up mess with dozens of dark secrets and grotesque dinner table habits. We finished today's call with Simon in hysterics after I told him a lump of placenta flew into my mouth during a manual removal and I had to go to occupational health about it. He may well be a sadist, come to think of it. Thursday, 15 March, 2007. I ask a patient in antenatal clinic how many weeks she is now. There's a long pause. Cogs turn. A camera slowly pans across a wasteland. Maths isn't everyone's strong point, but I'm after the number between 6 and 40 that people most constantly ask her about. Finally, in total? Yes, in total. God, I couldn't even tell you in months. God, I couldn't even tell you in months. Has she got amnesia? Is she a clone of another woman currently being held prisoner in an evil sci-fi villain's lair? I start to ask when her last period was, and she interrupts. Well, I'm 32 in June, so that's got to be more than 1,000 weeks. Christ. Thursday, 22 March, 2007. Idea for Dragon's Den. A bleep with a snooze button. Thursday, 5 April, 2007. Revenge is a dish best served cold, so long as it doesn't end up poisoning the wrong person. I was called to review a patient on the ward. She'd had a laparoscopic drainage of a pelvic abscess in the morning, and her pulse had been raised all evening. Looking through her notes, this lady was in her mid-50s and had discovered on her wedding anniversary that she wasn't the only person to have received a pearl necklace from her husband. Her reaction was seemingly straight out of a niche porn. She took herself and her husband's credit card off to Trinidad and Tobago and had sex with as many men as she could over the course of a fortnight, expanding her bedroom and beach repertoire to include anal sex. Back home, bow-legged but unbound, she soon found she was having terrible abdominal pain, plus producing purulent monsoons from both her Trinidad and her Tobago. She was diagnosed with pelvic inflammatory disease, and even IV antibiotics couldn't persuade it to saw it off. Seemingly, there's some pretty weapons-grade gonorrhea going around the Caribbean. Today's procedure would hopefully get her back on the road. turned out her raised pulse wasn't caused by any surgical complications, but because she was in floods of tears. I asked what was up, and she told me her 18-year-old son was coming over tomorrow to visit, and she didn't know what to say to him. How would he react when he found out why she was in the hospital? I reassured her that an 18-year-old boy would rather peel his testicles and douse them in malt vinegar than ask any questions at all about why his mother is on a gynecology ward. The phrase women's problems alone, especially if delivered in hushed tones while staring straight into his eyes, will have him changing the subject immediately, even if he has to start a small fire as a distraction. Tears over and pulse back down to normal, although she might want to think up a plausible excuse for that incredible suntan. Monday, 9 April 2007. Results out today. I have somehow passed my MRCOG Part 1 exam and am celebrating in the pub with Ron. Unfortunately, drinks are strictly non-alcoholic, as I have to head straight off afterwards to a night shift. And I gather turning up drunk is frowned upon. Ron recently got through his postgraduate accountancy exams, so we compare notes. While his firm cut down his hours so he could revise, I had to squeeze in as much revision as my bloodshot eyes would allow after work. Ron had a full month of study leave before the exam. I applied for a week off, but rota gaps meant that it ended up getting canceled at the last minute, without discussion. Oh, excuse me. I just can't stop yawning. Where was I? Oh, yes. Ended up getting canceled at the last minute, without discussion. His firm paid for all exam fees and materials. I had to shell out for 300 pounds worth of textbooks, a 500-pound course, 100 pounds for online learning resources, and 400 pounds on the exam itself, a grand total of 1,300 pounds, a mere 2/3 of my monthly take-home pay. My carefully considered answers don't even get seen by a human. It's a multiple choice paper, and you fill in the answers in pencil on a grid, which then gets scanned and marked by a computer. I show Ron the RCOG pencil I pinched. He immediately gets a promotion and pay rise for passing his exam. All mine means is that I'm now eligible to enter the Part 2 exam. No, all it means, says Ron sympathetically, is that you spent 1,300 pounds on a pencil. Alright, I think we'll call it quits right there for tonight, just because I just cannot stop yawning, but I'm really enjoying this book a lot. This last part that he's talking about is so much about where I am right now too, studying for my MCAT. And of course, it's so expensive. I mean, I spent about 400 pounds just to register for the test, and then had to spend more money on the materials. And of course, I'm doing all this studying while I'm in grad school, getting my graduate degree in public health, so I can sympathize in a way. Yeah, I'm really enjoying this book a lot. I would very much recommend this. I recommend this book a lot, and I recommend that last book that I read with y'all a lot. Yeah, enjoying this book very, very much. So, I'll probably go ahead and head to bed soon, but I will see you all again very soon. And once again, I hope you have had a really lovely evening and enjoyed listening to me read to you. I will see you all later. Good night.